It's not by chance that you're viewing this video. There's a reason you're here. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust the timing of your life and know that you're being led to where you're meant to be. As you stumble on this video, perhaps not by chance, it will serve to awaken your spirit. There is something profoundly distinct about your walk, your character, and your unwavering faith, so undeniable that even heaven could not overlook it. While others chose shortcuts, compromised their values, or surrendered to external pressure, you remain steadfast, holding true to your convictions without wavering or selling out. And now, the blessing that is on its way to you is not the result of mere chance or random favor, but a direct manifestation of divine recognition, an intentional reward for your integrity, endurance, and obedience. Heaven witnessed your private sacrifices and your silent endurance, the countless moments when you could have given up, but chose instead to remain faithful and steadfast. Now, the blessing being released over your life is not only a reward for what you did, but also for what you refused to do, for the compromises you rejected, the shortcuts you avoided, and the standards you upheld. Let's break it down in 7 clear chapters. Before we start, please like, share, and subscribe, because what lies ahead is not just insight, but impartation. This message is not merely content, it is divine confirmation. If you are hearing this, it is not by coincidence, but because heaven has intentionally orchestrated a word specifically for you. If your spirit resonates with the frequency of this truth, type 77 in the comments right now. That number is not just symbolic, it is a sacred signal, a prophetic declaration that you did not fold under pressure. You did not pretend to be something you're not, and you did not sell out your values. You remain true. And now, as a result of your faithfulness, your blessing is being activated. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The world offered you quick success, but you chose the longer, more faithful path. Chosen one, take a moment to truly reflect on this. There were seasons in your life when the world placed enticing opportunities before you, opportunities that seemed to align perfectly with your prayers. Doors opened that sparkled with promise, invitations arrived that sounded divine, platforms appeared that guaranteed visibility, and connections came with the allure of instant elevation. You were presented with what looked like the fast track to everything you thought you were waiting for: money, status, influence, and recognition. The world offered you a shortcut, but you didn't take it. As you looked more closely, your spirit grew increasingly unsettled, although it appeared good on the surface. You discerned that it was not from God. Something deep within you paused, and a sacred whisper inside declared, "This isn't it." You came to realize that what was being offered came with invisible chains, demanding that you alter essential parts of yourself, dilute your truth, compromise your values, diminish your presence, pretend, and perform a role that was never yours to play. And though the world may have celebrated you for conforming, heaven would have remained silent. You had every opportunity to take the easy route, with people urging you to say yes, to rebrand yourself, adjust your tone, and align with the trends. You could have gained recognition more quickly if only you had been willing to sell a small piece of your soul in the process. But instead, you chose integrity. You walked away, turned it down, and embraced a path that made no sense to those around you. The longer, lonelier road marked by silence and obscurity. You didn't go viral, you went deeper. You weren't being celebrated, you were being sanctified. You weren't gathering followers, you were gathering wisdom. And in that hidden process, you were becoming someone the world couldn't yet recognize, but whom God already knew intimately. There were moments when you cried, questioning whether you had made a mistake, wondering if you had missed your moment, if you were being too hard on yourself, if perhaps everyone else was right and you were simply being left behind. But even in the midst of your doubt, you didn't move. You didn't rush, and you didn't sell out. Instead, you chose to trust what God whispered to your spirit, even when it clashed with what the world shouted. And in that quiet obedience, heaven took note. Because every time you said no to something that looked promising but lacked purity, God took notice. Every time you turned down what brought attention but lacked authenticity, He honored your decision, not because you were simply avoiding temptation, but because you were demonstrating that you could be trusted, not merely with a platform, but with divine purpose. And now, chosen one, the reward that is entering your life is sacred. It is not a handout, but a harvest. Not a bribe, but a breakthrough. Not a fleeting moment of hype, but a lasting movement of destiny. This blessing did not come from those you impressed. It is flowing from the person you chose to remain. Because you didn't sell out, your blessing will not sell you out. It won't break you, it won't shift with trends, and it won't require you to change who you are in order to keep it. Instead, it will affirm who you have always been. You chose the road marked by tears, the path defined by waiting, but that same road also brought refinement. And now, the blessing appearing in your life is not rushed, not recycled, and not reliant on human approval. It is divine, it is appointed, and it is unstoppable, because it was birthed not in ambition, but in obedience. You didn't choose quick success. You chose legacy over likes. You took the longer path so God could build something lasting through you. Now that path is leading to something greater than you ever imagined. Chapter 2. The blessing is coming in purity because your hands are clean. Chosen one, this next season of your life is not merely about what you're receiving, but about how you're receiving it. You are not just being blessed, you are being vindicated. And you are about to be elevated in a way that cannot be traced back to manipulation, scheming, or deception. Why? Because your hands are clean. You didn't step on others to rise, didn't gossip or tear anyone down to create space for yourself, and didn't sell yourself as a manufactured image just to gain access to rooms that were never designed with your spirit in mind. You didn't imitate what was popular to gain relevance. Instead, you remained grounded, honest, and authentically yourself in a world where authenticity is rare and integrity is often mistaken for weakness. And yes, that path came with rejection, as people overlooked you simply because you refused to play dirty. They avoided you because you weren't desperate. You didn't flatter egos to fit in, didn't alter your truth to make it more palatable, and didn't chase clout. Instead, you pursued your calling. There were seasons when you were mocked for that choice, times when it seemed as though everyone else was advancing, gaining influence, and growing quickly. You watched as those who cut corners were promoted, while you remained hidden. And in your quiet frustration, you asked God, "Did I do something wrong?" But heaven remained silent, not because God was ignoring you, but because he was preparing something so powerful that it would speak for itself. Now, the blessing that is coming into your life is different. It is clean, it is holy, and it is untouched by manipulation or compromise. No person can boast that they gave it to you. No brand, no system, no influencer, and no gatekeeper can claim credit for what is about to be released over your life. This blessing does not stem from strategy, it flows from surrender. It is the kind of favor reserved for those who did not chase opportunity, but chose to chase obedience. It is the reward for remaining true in a false system, for preserving your character when you had every reason to give in. You didn't sell your voice to fit a market, didn't twist your message to impress algorithms, and didn't silence your spirit to appear more acceptable. You stayed pure, even when it cost you. And now, God is about to bless you in a way that is just as pure, a clean blessing, untainted, undiluted, and undeniable. There will be no sorrow attached to what is coming, and it will not drain you to maintain it. It will not trap you in performance to keep it, and you won't have to wear a mask to remain in the room. What God is giving you now will not become a burden later. And more than simply receiving the blessing, you will embody and represent something far greater through it. People will look at you and realize that purity is still powerful, that it is possible to rise without selling your soul, to stand in truth and still be elevated. You will become living proof that favor does not require faking, and that true success does not demand compromise. The world tried to convince you that staying clean was weakness, that remaining authentic would leave you behind. But now, God is about to make a public announcement through your life, declaring, "This is what I do for those who kept their hands clean. This is what I release to those who refuse to bow to Babylon." You were not built by clicks. You were carved through consecration. You were not positioned by people. You were preserved by purpose. You were not promoted by systems. You were sustained by the Spirit. Chapter 3, Asterisk. They laughed at you, but now they understand why you waited, chosen one. Let's tell the truth. This journey hasn't always been glamorous. There were seasons when, from the outside, your life appeared stuck. You weren't moving like others. You weren't constantly posting your progress. And you weren't hustling just to be seen. People didn't understand it. They questioned your quiet, misinterpreted your stillness as laziness, and mistook your peace for passivity. Some whispered that you were afraid to take risks, while others rolled their eyes, assuming you were simply making excuses. To them, it appeared as though you had no direction. But what they didn't see was what was unfolding in the silence. While they chased recognition, you pursued revelation. While they jumped from opportunity to opportunity, you remained rooted in obedience. You were not inactive, you were intentional, with every step guided by the Spirit, not driven by pressure. Every pause you made was a response to divine timing, not to fear. You weren't merely avoiding the noise, you were being trained in the quiet. They didn't see the nights you cried, asking God if you were moving too slowly. They didn't hear the prayers where you questioned whether you had missed something. They didn't feel the internal battle between the desire to prove yourself and the conviction to wait on the Lord. Yet, despite it all, you chose obedience. You chose to wait, even when rushing might have brought applause. You chose to remain still when movement might have brought you attention, and you intentionally stayed hidden while others chased the spotlight. Not because you lacked ambition, but because you understood that God's timing, though not always loud, is always perfect. And now, the blessing being released over your life is silencing every voice that once mocked you, transforming into a visible testimony that even those who assumed you were wasting time cannot deny, as the very people who once whispered behind your back are now witnessing the divine reward that was being quietly cultivated while they were loudly performing. But here's the key. This moment is not about proving anyone wrong, nor is it about flaunting your success or seeking revenge. Rather, it is about divine vindication, about God publicly honoring what He privately prepared in you, about heaven declaring, "Now let me show them why I told you to wait," and in doing so, revealing the purpose behind the patience, the reason for the hidden season, and the glory that comes from obedience over applause. God is now making it undeniably clear that your patience was never foolishness, but rather faith in action. Your stillness was not a sign of weakness, but wisdom wrapped in trust. And your unwavering refusal to compromise your pace, your values, or your voice did not go unnoticed in the spirit realm. For you were not being lazy, but loyal, not moving slowly, but moving strategically under divine instruction. Not missing out, but being divinely positioned. And now, the shift is taking place. The evidence is about to become undeniable. And the fruit of your stillness is about to be revealed for all to see. The blessing is not merely showing up, it is arriving precisely on time, aligned with God's divine calendar rather than man's expectations. And as a result, you will walk into rooms that others tried to force their way into, receive favor that others attempted to fabricate, and live in overflow. Not because you rushed ahead, but because you chose to wait. Even while they laughed, doubted, and dismissed you. But now, they will have no choice but to respect what you carry, because it originated from a realm they never believed in. And while they watch and witness what God is doing, let your heart remain free from bitterness, for this is not a moment for vengeance, but a moment for divine alignment. You are not rising to flex or to shame anyone, but to fulfill purpose and to shine as a vessel of God's glory. And here's the final truth. If you had rushed as they wanted, you would have forfeited what is now being released. But because you waited, because you obeyed, because you remained hidden in trust and alignment, what is now unfolding cannot be stopped, cannot be explained by human logic, and cannot be denied. For the blessing is here, and every second of the wait has proven to be worth it. Chapter 4. You, chosen one, made the courageous decision to uphold your integrity, even when it cost you. repeatedly choosing what was right over what was easy, despite everything around you suggesting it wasn't worth it, for integrity is costly, not merely spoken with the lips, but demonstrated through a consistent life. And you proved its value through every quiet decision, every unseen sacrifice, and every moment you chose character over compromise. And for you, the cost has been deep. It cost you opportunities that once seemed promising, relationships that once felt significant, and invitations to spaces where compromise was the required entry ticket. It cost you moments where you could have advanced, impressed, or even won, if only you had been willing to sell out just a little. But you didn't. You chose to stand tall when it would have been easier to bend, and you spoke the truth even when a lie could have safeguarded your image. You walked away when staying might have made you appear stronger in the eyes of man, but would have made you weaker in the eyes of God. And yes, it hurt, because sometimes integrity left you empty-handed. Sometimes it required silence when you longed to speak, and sometimes it meant being misunderstood, misjudged, and even mistreated, all for the sake of honoring a standard higher than public approval. You walked away when staying might have made you appear stronger in the eyes of man, but would have made you weaker in the eyes of God. And yes, it hurt, because sometimes integrity left you empty-handed, sometimes it required silence when you longed to speak, and sometimes it meant being misunderstood, misjudged, and even mistreated, all for the sake of honoring a standard higher than public approval. But you held on to a truth that many forget, that while integrity may cost you in the short term, it protects you for a lifetime. And though there were moments when you looked around and saw others gaining traction through compromise, witnessed people being celebrated for being fake, and watched as the loudest voices were given the platform while you sat in the quiet, questioning whether doing it the right way was even working, you still chose to remain faithful to what was true. But here's what they don't understand. Heaven doesn't operate on hype. God doesn't reward manipulation, and the kingdom doesn't advance through clout. It moves through character. And every time you chose to walk away from what wasn't aligned with your soul, God took note. Every time you released something you could have taken by force, God recorded it. And every time you honored him behind closed doors, when no one was watching, when no one was clapping, heaven was paying close attention. Because you didn't just speak about integrity, you lived it. And now, chosen one, the shift is coming. God is about to reward the very integrity that once cost you everything. Either fill the hands that remained empty, so your soul could stay clean, and restore everything you walked away from with interest. For not only is the blessing coming, but it is coming on a foundation that is solid, unshakable, and built on truth. This is not a shaky, temporary, or conditional blessing. It is not a look-good-for-now situation, but rather something eternal, something real, a reward that cannot be revoked, because it is rooted in who you truly are, not in who you pretended to be. And now your integrity has become the very soil in which God is planting your harvest. And because the soil is pure, the fruit will endure. Because the roots are deep, the rise will be sustained. And because your motives were clean, your name will be preserved. While others may have built success through manipulation, and now find themselves exhausted trying to maintain it, and some may have gained a following by lying, yet live tormented, struggling to uphold the mask they created. But you are about to rise with peace, grow without guilt, and expand without ego, because God knows he can trust you. He saw the moments when you could have compromised but chose not to, the times you were tested yet did not break, and every instance where you chose truth over trends, character over convenience, and righteousness over recognition. And now your time has come. The same integrity that once cost you is about to crown you. The very character that made you feel behind is now setting you apart. And the standard you live by, even when it was hard, it's about to be your signature. A mark that says, this one didn't fold, this one didn't fake it, this one feared God more than man. Get ready. Your harvest isn't just a reward. It's a reflection of the honor you carried when nobody was clapping. And when the blessing hits, the world won't just see what you have. They'll feel who you are. And they'll know that kind of favor only comes from heaven. Chapter 5. They sold out for claps, but you, chosen one, held out for the crown. In a world where everyone was rushing to be seen, you chose to wait until you were sent. And that decision, though costly, is the very reason you are being crowned in this season. For while others chased platforms, reshaped their identities for popularity, and compromised their truth just to get ahead, you watched as many sold their message, their voice, and their values for the fleeting approval of crowds that never truly cared for them. They clapped, but the claps faded. They trended, but the trends shifted. And in their desperation to be seen, they became strangers to themselves. But you chose a different path. You were not moved by the sound of applause, but anchored by the voice of God. You were not seduced by quick attention, but grounded in eternal purpose. You were not desperate for fame, but hungry for true fulfillment. The enemy tried to bait you, dangling opportunities that appeared shiny, but were spiritually shallow, offering shortcuts that could have elevated your image while diminishing your soul. And yes, there were moments when you considered it, moments when you felt left behind, unrecognized, and tempted to follow the path everyone else was taking. But something in your spirit wouldn't let you, because you couldn't fake what God made real. You couldn't dress your gift in costumes just to make it more acceptable, and you couldn't trade your calling for claps, for you were not made for performance but for purpose. And yes, that purpose required seasons of invisibility, where you remained hidden while others were highlighted, silent while others went viral, and still while others sprinted into rooms you knew you were never called to enter. But now, the shift is happening, and it is not the result of compromise, but the result of consecration. God kept you hidden not to punish you, but to preserve you, because He knew the weight of your calling, the power in your voice, and the value of what He placed within you, something that could not be exposed too early, lest it be exploited by the wrong hands. You were never overlooked, you were protected, and now, because you held out, because you didn't sell out, and because you refused to become something, you're not just to fit the mold, you are being crowned. But this is not a man-made crown. It is not a reward from people who only applaud when you perform, nor is it a temporary trend or a fleeting viral moment. This crown is spiritual, eternal, and backed by heaven itself. You are not being promoted for an image, but honored for your integrity, not celebrated because you played the game, but elevated because you broke it by staying true to who you are. The very people who laughed at your silence will now witness your sound, and the ones who thought you were moving too slowly will now see how far God is taking you. The same doors you refuse to force open are now being opened for you by unseen hands. Because this is divine recognition. This is holy promotion. This is the reward for the one who declared, "I'd rather be hidden in obedience than be famous in disobedience." And when people ask how you did it, you won't need to explain, because your life will be the sermon, your character will be the message, and your crown will be the confirmation that you were always chosen. You didn't wait for man to validate you, you waited for heaven to crown you. And now that moment has arrived. You are not just being seen, you are being sent, not merely applauded, but anointed, not simply invited into rooms, but entrusted with territory. And because you held out for the real thing, God is now about to give you everything. Chapter 6. God trusted you with rejection because He was testing your loyalty, chosen one. Let's go deeper. What you endured was not random, nor was it merely the cruelty of people or the coldness of life, but rather a divine strategy. God was not punishing you, He was proving you. You were not simply being shut out, you were being set apart, and you were not merely facing loss, but being refined by fire. What looked like abandonment was, in fact, an audition for elevation. For rejection is one of heaven's most misunderstood gifts. It comes without applause, without explanation. It doesn't feel good, and it rarely looks spiritual, yet it is sacred because it tests what applause can't measure. Your loyalty. God allowed the doors to close, allowed the phone to stop ringing, let certain people walk away, and even permitted your name to be forgotten. Not because He forgot about you, but because He was watching you. Heaven was paying close attention in those silent seasons, watching to see if you would still believe even when nothing was moving, if you would still sow even when you had little to give, if you would still walk in purity even when compromise seemed to be rewarded all around you. And the truth is, you didn't just face rejection, you remained righteous in the midst of it. You didn't allow it to poison your heart, harden your spirit, or push you into pretending just to feel accepted. Instead, you served when no one was clapping, prayed when it felt like your prayers were hitting the ceiling, gave love when all you received was silence, and stayed faithful not because of results, but because of relationship. You weren't performing for a platform. You were obeying out of love. And that is why you passed. Chosen one, your rejection was never truly about who left you, but about what God was preparing to entrust to you. Because while anyone can remain loyal when they're being praised, only a few remain loyal when they're being overlooked. Yet you didn't fold, you didn't fake it, you didn't change just to fit someone else's mold, and you didn't water down your fire to become palatable to those who couldn't carry the weight of your calling. You stayed consistent, you stayed clean, you stayed grounded, and heaven took note. You see, loyalty isn't loud, but it is powerful. It doesn't trend, but it transforms. It may not be celebrated in the moment, but it is rewarded for eternity. And that is why the next promotion coming into your life will not be built on branding, marketing, or manipulation. Nor will it come from your connections or clout, but from the covenant God made with you. The very covenant you honored when it was hard, when it was lonely, and when the future felt uncertain. This is not just another open door. This is a divine release. God is about to give you visibility because he saw how you handled invisibility. He is about to grant you favor because you remained faithful, even when it felt like you had none. He is about to pour blessings into your lap because you refused to compromise to obtain what he always intended to give you in his perfect timing. And make no mistake, this is not a temporary blessing. This is not one of those up and down short-term wins. This is permanent, this is preserved, this is prophetic. You didn't sell out, you stayed loyal, not just loyal to your calling, but to your character, to the truth God planted in your soul, to the voice you carry, and to the assignment you refuse to abandon. You passed the test, not only with your hands, but with your heart. And now, heaven is declaring, this one can be trusted with more. For you were entrusted with rejection and did not grow bitter. You were entrusted with isolation and did not self-destruct. You were entrusted with silent seasons and did not go chasing after noise. You were tested and found faithful. And so now, chosen one, watch as God opens what man tried to close, elevates what others attempted to bury, and rewards what you faithfully did in secret, because the reward will be public, permanent, and undeniably divine. Chapter 7. This blessing is not merely a reward, it is a release. Chosen one, let this truth settle deeply in your spirit. What is coming to you is more than just a blessing. It is a divine release. This is not simply heaven saying, well done, but heaven declaring, now go, it's time. You are not just being rewarded for your endurance. You are being released into the next dimension of your calling. This is not about finally receiving something you've been waiting for, but about being unleashed into what you were born for. And there is a profound difference, because while some blessings feel like gifts, this one, this season, feels like divine alignment erupting into reality. It is the moment where divine timing, your preparation, and God's orchestration converge, and the doors swing wide open, not because you merely waited, but because you stayed ready. Not because you simply survived the wilderness, but because you allowed it to prepare you. Not because you were just still, but because you remained anchored. And now, heaven is not merely giving you things, it is entrusting you with territory. And there are doors you won't have to knock on, because they are already swinging open. There are rooms you won't have to campaign for. They are already being prepared for you. There are resources on the way, assigned directly to your obedience. And there are divine connections awakening even now, because the frequency of your faith has activated supernatural alignment. This is not merely a payout, nor is it God tossing you a blessing in response to your suffering. This is strategy. This is spiritual architecture, and everything is unfolding exactly when it was meant to. Because God didn't just record your obedience, he scheduled your release. Heaven operates according to timing, not emotion. And now that the test has been passed, your loyalty proven, and your integrity demonstrated in obscurity. Heaven is unlocking the vault. You have been hidden long enough, quiet long enough, restrained, refined, and recalibrated. And now God is declaring, let them go, they're ready. This release is not random, not chaotic, and not rushed. It is righteous. And you are being released into your rightful place, into the very position you were anointed for, before the foundation of the world. You are being released into a power that no man gave you, so no man can take it away. You are being released into a level of provision that reflects not only what you need, but what you are called to build. You are being released into a divine flow where there is no need to force, fake, or fight, because favor is now flowing freely. And this blessing is more than a personal victory. It is the public unfolding of what heaven has been crafting in private all along. And it is not just for you, for this blessing is deeply tied to legacy. This release will impact generations, and this shift will awaken others, because when a chosen one walks in their release, everything around them begins to change. You didn't sell out, you stood out. You didn't dilute your message, you deepened your mission. And you didn't compromise for access. And now God is granting you access without compromise. No gatekeeper can block what has been sealed with your name. No opposition can delay what has already been dispatched. And no counterfeit can replace what has been divinely reserved for you. This is the moment the enemy dreaded. The moment your waiting turns into walking. Your obscurity transforms into overflow. And your preparation collides with prophetic release. And it was never merely about reward, it was always about reign. Reigning not with ego, but with authority. Not with pride, but with purpose. Not for likes, but for liberation. Because your voice is not emerging for entertainment, it is rising for deliverance. Your gift is not being elevated for vanity, it is being elevated for victory. So walk into this release boldly, chosen one, without questioning whether you deserve it and without doubting if it is real, because this is not hype, it is holy. This is your time. This is your release. And no one can stop what God has already said yes to. Thanks for watching. So Kocho Mima, here ends this video. Take a moment to like, share, and subscribe.